Political Compass Test, Take 2, Part 1. At first, I want to say something. I've uploaded some, if not even most of my articles here to YouTube as well, in an audio form. Today, I got a message concerning my video called Trump and High Ideals, saying that it has been put into limited state. I filed a complaint, so we'll just have to wait and see how this turns out. I'd like to say that once they start censoring me, it's a sign that I'm doing something right, but that ain't completely right either. I read the whole post a few times now, searching for anything that they might have used to file the complaint, but the fact is, that I don't think I said anything there that broke the rules of YouTube. I have a huge respect for YouTube in general, although I'm not on board with all this censoring. I still recognize how YouTube has revolutionized the use of social media as a way to connect with people, to discuss, and to express ourselves. I'd hate to have the video completely taken down, so I'm anxiously waiting for their response. I've been planning to grow my presence on YouTube in the future. That is why I'm putting so much more effort to this blog nowadays. I've made the music on the background myself. I've spent an enormous amount of time reading and researching to be able to put out the best content that I possibly can, and that's why this sucks so bad. Well, that's that. For this post, I decided I'd do a test to see where I fit in the political spectrum nowadays, since my political stances have gone through some major changes in the past few months. The test gives me a claim, to which I have to respond with choosing either strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. Let's start. The test I chose can be found at www.politicalcompass.org web link. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. I'll pick strongly agree for this, with the given assumption that globalization was indeed inevitable. In the end, the goal of a business is to expand, and as much as I favor private businesses over state-run businesses, I'll always favor people over money for the ultra-global corporations. If it was up to these corporations, we'd all be one population of consumers, buying their cheap crap to keep ourselves fat, dumb and depressed, while the rich businessmen would just be fat. 2. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. I picked agree, simply because I have faith in my country. This is a multi-layered question though, which is why I didn't pick strongly agree. I'm not always in line with my president, because the politicians are just people capable of making errors, big and small, and in the past few years, there seems to be nothing but error from their part. I will always support my country, which is why I rarely support my politicians. Let's put it that way. 3. No one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. It won't surprise anyone that I picked strongly disagree. Why couldn't I be proud of my heritage, my country, and my ancestors? I'm not going to dismiss the accomplishments of those who came before me just because I wasn't personally there at the time. People should always cherish and be proud of who they are, and in my eyes, that will never change. In my opinion, if there's nothing to be proud of, nothing to cherish, there's nothing to preserve either, and my country and culture are most definitely things that I'd like to see preserved. 4. Our race has many superior qualities, compared with other races. The problem with this is, that I don't know which way to go, political, or biological. Because if we're not talking about biology, we're talking with the boundaries of mere ideology in mind. And in that sense, simply stating that I have superior qualities could be a fatal error, just because the phrase is so easily misunderstood. I'll be honest with this question. I'll pick strongly agree, because I most definitely could name some specific good qualities that have been proven to be more frequent within white populations than others. Whites have a general IQ higher than that of blacks. Of course, in general, nothing makes one race superior to another. That's a word I'd never use, but the biological reality is that we're not equal in any measure. East Asians have higher average IQ than whites. Does that make their race superior? Well, no. It makes their general level of IQ superior compared to whites, sure. But there's so many measurements of difference that could be measured and compared between populations, that speaking of general superiority would most definitely be malicious and dishonest. But to answer this question shortly, yes, Whites have some qualities that have been measured and proven to be no better than those of some other races. 5. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'm really unsure which political side would say this, but I most definitely wouldn't, so I chose strongly disagree. 6. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I chose agree, because while laws should normally be respected, there's no such thing as no possibility of a situation arising where international laws would simply have to be broken. The way I see it, the international law is good usually, but sometimes, actions that may go against those could be needed. 7. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Strongly disagree. What I'm now doing here could be interpreted as a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I think that this is worrisome only to the establishment-controlled dinosaur media. It's only the international, huge and politically motivated news outlets that have to worry about the rise of generation that can make their own news, make up their own minds, and think for themselves. The time before the rise of internet was easy for the leftists reporters, because the news you saw on TV and the news you read from the newspapers mostly controlled by these same businesses were literally the only news you'd get. They could just report what they wish, however they wish, and we didn't get to pick and choose where we get our news from. Nowadays, we see these huge corporations firing people because they can't afford to keep them anymore. Nobody cares about them, and the more we can replace these damned news sites with independent content creators, the better. Of course, the left-controlled media is an endless source of inspiration for this blog, but to see them crumble, that's a sight worth some money. On to page 2 of the test. This page is mainly about economics, and like they clarify on the beginning, we're talking attitudes here, not the FTSE index. 8. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. This is a multi-layered question, too, but as I like to keep things simple, I'd say that ultimately class is what divides us, nationality is what can again unite us, so I pick agree. 9. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. In my opinion, minimizing unemployment is more important than minimizing inflation, but controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Minimizing unemployment is a noble task for a government, and a very important one, since high levels of unemployment cause all kind of unwanted symptoms. But the fact is, that if the inflation gets out of hand, it doesn't matter if you work or not, you're poor anyway. On that note, my answer is strongly agree. 10. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Agree. I truly care about the environment, and with our people and genetics, nature is by far the most important thing we should seek to protect. My inner libertarian is screaming bloody murder inside me when I call for regulations, but when push comes to shove, people are greedy, and if they can minimize their losses by doing some extra damage to the nature, they will, and for that, I'll be willing to allow some gentle government regulations. After all, while I have my libertarian leanings, I'm not an anarchist, or an ANCAP. I think that protecting nature is one of the most noble things one can do for his own country, and truly working to clear the oceans and air in this toxic modern world is to be a true patriot at heart. 11. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. Oh, I feel bad for writing that down. Last time I checked, this fundamentally good idea led to somewhere around 7 million people getting slaughtered like lambs, so no. It's a very bad, very bad idea. Let's not try that again, ever. Strongly disagree. 12. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Yes, it is. It's pathetic and unwise to see this as a good deal. Strongly agree. 13. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Strongly disagree. Land is exactly that, a commodity to be bought and sold. That's how the world functions, and I don't see why that would be a bad thing. I have my property, you have yours, and if you're successful, you can buy a property that's a bit bigger than the one you now have. I can rent my property to you, You pay me money and I let you live on my land. It's simple and effective, and it helps people pay their bills. 14. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. It really isn't. It doesn't affect me in the slightest, unless these people are some horrible monsters aiming to destroy the world. Some are poor, some are rich, and if you happen to be rich, more power to you. Of course I'd like you to contribute to the society with that pile of cash, but since the pile of cash belongs to you, you don't have to ask my permission or approval when spending the money. If I wanted to get rich, I could. I'd just have to make some sacrifices and work hard, and maybe I'd be rich someday. But I have other interests. Strongly disagree, just simply because it isn't my business. 15. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. It absolutely is. Sometimes, things like tariffs are needed so that countries that produce cheaper goods than our own doesn't get to completely monopolize the market on our own countries. Nowadays, I can go online, and with like 3 or 4 clicks, I can order something from China to be delivered straight to my doorstep, within 2 weeks. This is both fantastic, and terrifying. If this thing keeps growing and growing, it will fuck up Finland's own economy for good, and in this case, some government regulations are needed to balance out the market. Consumers are easy to manipulate with cheaper good, because let's be honest, if you can get the same shoes from a Finnish shop with 60 euros, and from a Chinese web store with 10 euros, you'll pick the Chinese, or at least, most people will, and this is a bad thing. This is why I strongly agree. 16. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. This is akin to what people call the Friedman Doctrine, and it actually can be found from even Wikipedia by that name. In the article in Wikipedia, it states that Friedman argued that a company should have no social responsibility to the public or society because its only concern is to increase profits for itself and for its shareholders, and that the shareholders in their private capacity are the ones with the social responsibility. He wrote about this concept in his book Capitalism and Freedom. In it he states that when companies concern themselves with the community rather than focusing on profits, it leads to totalitarianism. I tend to agree with this. Of course, it'd be good if the companies gave some thought to the community as well, but all in all, we have laws and regulations in place, so within those boundaries, I absolutely think that companies should be able to work as freely as possible. The freedom to produce and compete leads to stability, which is overall good for the economy. If the market is free, usually it'll balance itself out, if anything other than profitable things start popping up. I'll say agree to this one. 17. The rich are too highly taxed. Yes, they are. Strongly agree. 18. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Well, that's how it has always been, at least here in Finland, and I don't see anything bad about that. If you can put in the money, you'll get the services faster and better, and if you're poor, you'll have to wait in line with the others. In Finland, the poor gets treated, as well, but if they had more money, they wouldn't have to go to a state-run clinic, they could forward their money towards faster and more efficient private clinics. Strongly agree. 19. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. I chose agree, but I really don't have an opinion on this. Maybe. 20. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. As I said above, in my opinion, we need to have some minor regulations to ensure the safety of our own economies in the face of these multi-billion-dollar corporations. Strongly agree. 21. The freer the market, the freer the people. I don't even know if this is a subject of opinion, really. The less there are regulations, the less controlled the business owners are, and therefore, they are freer. Strongly agree. I'm not saying if this ultimate freedom is good for the country or not though, people can be all sorts of dumb. But hey, maybe that's the price we pay for our liberties. I don't know. 22. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. This is a question that I've thought about a lot, maybe more than I should have. But after all, it's an important topic, one which I could maybe make a whole article about somewhere in the future. I'll say agree, because I don't think that life begins when the baby is popped out from the vagina. I think life begins when the baby starts to grow inside a woman, and as I've said before, I'm very much against all types of violence, so this is why my answer here would be agree. 23. All authority should be questioned. Agree. I don't agree strongly, but I agree, because I think that an authority is needed by the masses to guide them to the correct direction. There wasn't a point in time of human history where there was simultaneously a complete lack of authority and peace. One single example of drastic effects of lawlessness would be Somalia, and let me tell you, that ain't a pretty sight. All authority should be questioned, but not always and all the time. That's my personal opinion. 24. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. This, as law, would be good if put into practice with certain boundaries, in my opinion. This would make committing a crime much less preferable in the eyes of the criminals. This would probably decrease every kind of crime in Finland of today. There have been mass rapes of young girls and children in Finland within past few years, and the time they have to serve for this isn't anything close to a threat. A population should be able to act effectively and fast towards those who willingly ruin the country, and we should be able to make the criminals so afraid that they simply wouldn't commit these horrible acts. Agree. 25. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. This is a tough one. If we completely stop supporting our culture and arts, they'll fall apart, and inevitably, they'll be replaced by something else, something foreign. But are taxes the only solution to support these things? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it would turn out if mere individuals supported and upheld these places. I really can't say. I'll say agree, but I'm not very sure about that. 26. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I strongly disagree. It absolutely should be compulsory. If we're to grow a generation of good-mannered and well-educated kids, the compulsory classroom attendance is a good way of showing kids that there are things in life that aren't pleasant, so to speak, but are necessary in order to reach any type of success in life. The world is hard, and we should be able to prepare our kids for that world, so that when they spread their wings and fly out from the nest, they can't be shot down so easily. Make schools great again. 27. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. I strongly agree. My version of the white ethnostate, my version of biological essentialism, if you will, is completely based on voluntarism, and not on tyranny or fascism. I want people, who wish to only associate with their own kind, to be able to freely do that, and I want the people, who wish to associate with other populations to be able to freely exercise their rights to freedom of association. People should always be free to choose, with who they share a piece of land with. Associating with only your own kind is the best way biologically, economically, and socially, but if you wish to go the other way, I will gladly see you do that. 28. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Good parents never hit their children. Strongly disagree. 29. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. I don't know why this is here. Does someone think that it isn't normal for kids to keep certain things from their parents? Strongly agree. 30. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. I'm a libertarian at heart, so while I don't like marijuana, and I disassociate with people who use it on a regular basis, people should absolutely have the right to get dumb and destroy their lives if they wanted to do so. I mean, less competition, right? Agree. 31. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. Disagree. I think there are multiple things that schools should be doing. Schools should be not only preparing kids for the job market, but also, towards life after school in general. Of course, I think the parents should be the ones that should teach kids things like morality, their own philosophy, and all that, but a good school would definitely help them out a bit there, too. Modern schools are what they are, not very good indeed, but I don't think there's no point in trying to make them better. Schooling should in my opinion be half preparing for the job market, and half learning for learning's sake, as idealistic as that may sound to some. 32. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Everyone should be allowed to reproduce, but they shouldn't be able to take money from your pocket to feed their disabled children. If they can make it on their own, I don't care, go ahead and have a family, but if you make kids and can't afford to keep them so you'll have to live on government handouts, you're a parasite in the system, and in my eyes, a criminal taking money from me in form of taxation to feed you and your children. Strongly disagree. 33. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Discipline is part of it, but there's so much in the world that must be taught to children, that putting them to some sort of order is too much of a task for me, for this post especially. Disagree. 34. There are no savage and civilized peoples, there are only different cultures. If you don't think there are savages existing in the world, I'm not looking at the world through the same goggles than you are. Of course, that savagery is a big part of some foreign cultures, but I will never accept their ways and say that they aren't savage. They very much are. Strong disagreement on this one. 35. Those who are able to work, and refuse the opportunity, should not expect society's support. Don't be a leech. Strongly agree. 36. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Oh, fuck this. Without the ability to see the world as it is, without the courage to go and face the danger, independent content creators like me wouldn't exist. Stop distracting yourself, and take it upon you to make the world a better place. Strongly disagree. 37. First-generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. Well, it depends. If there's 100 Syrians immigrating into Iraq, I bet they'll make a fair fit. If we're talking about immigration from Syria into Finland, I'll go even further than what the test claims, none of them can. They will keep upholding their own cultures, they will keep favoring their own genes above the host nations, and that's just healthy and normal. What's not healthy and normal is these people coming to Europe in the first place. Strongly agree. 38. What's good for the most successful corporations is always, ultimately, good for all of us. No, it isn't. Strongly disagree. 39. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. Couldn't agree more strongly. So, we're past the first half of the test now, and since it's a long one, I decided I'd end here, and continue next time. What do you think about my answers so far? Leave your thoughts on the comment section below. Stay infidel. Finish infidel.